All right. Good evening. Can everybody hear all right? I want to thank you all for being with us tonight for the November meeting of the Abingdon, Virginia Town Council. A couple of things that I would point out as we begin the process. First of all, our council members each month receive a substantial amount of preparation materials to help us understand the topics we'll be considering each evening. On the left side of the room, on the table, there are copies of those materials. If anyone wishes to examine them or have a look at it, they're more than welcome to. Also, I would encourage everyone, please, if you would, to turn off your cell phones or put them on stun, as the case, as they say. And so we won't have that interruption this evening. That being said, I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Let's see, Mr. Howard.
Here.
Mr. Humphreys.
Here.
Mrs. During. Here. Mrs. Lowe.
Here.
And Mayor Morgan.
Here. I would note for this evening that we have a bit of an unusual set of circumstances. I'm going to have to ask our staff, as appropriate, to sort of walk me through it, because there is a great danger that I will mess this up before it's over with. But we are having a joint hearing tonight with our town planners who are represented with us this evening. We are reviewing the town's comprehensive plan. We will be having public hearings this evening to take input on the plan and suggestions and comments. That being said, I'll give our Planning Commission the opportunity to open their meeting.
I think I need to call the roll for the Planning Commission.
Yes, if you would call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Bundy. Mr. Craig.
Present.
Mr. Schuman.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
And Mr. Howard.
Here.
And that let the record reflect that 5 members of the Planning Commission are present.
Very good. Okay, at this point in time, it's customary for us to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Howard is going to lead us tonight.
Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, before we begin with our public hearing, I'm pleased to recognize a distinguished member of the Washington County Board of Supervisors and an Emory and Henry graduate, Mr. Phil McCall, who is with us this evening, and I believe he's asked to extend an invitation early in the game here.
Yes, sir, I have. Good to see you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for being here.
Councilmen. I'm here not as a representative of the Board of Supervisors. I'm here as a representative of people in my district. I know a major part of Abingdon is in my district, and we are now looking at our comprehensive plan also. And we've had community meetings. Our 7th one will be Thursday night at Abingdon High School at 6:30. And I wanted to come and extend a personal invitation to each and every one of you to come, because I know that the town of Abingdon and Washington County must work together.
Absolutely.
And this is looking into the future. It's some plans that we need to look at, and I know you'll have input. I had a very spirited meeting the other night. Went over to Elder Spirits. The ladies and gentlemen over there, and they invited me to come over. Had pizza with them, and some other activities, and then we went over the comprehensive plan, and they were very active in their ideas and things. A few things they mentioned that were not in the county, they were in the town. One, they mentioned to do everything we can to keep a barter theater, the arts, things like that. One concern they had was with transportation. I'm not sure what they meant about that, but it's something you can look into. But I did want to come and personally invite each and every one of you to come and participate if you would like to, and that's why I came tonight.
Thank you very much for coming, and I will say it's very refreshing, first of all, to have the invitation, and secondly, to know that the county is working on a good, solid, comprehensive plan, and we appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to help work collectively with the supervisors to help shape the future of our community. And you're more than welcome to stay for this part of the thing as well.
I'll stay for the first
10 years ago.
That'll be fine, sir. Well, thank you. We're
Getting a little more active, though. This is a little calm.
we're a pretty agreeable lot here.
Enjoy this.
Okay. All right, now I'll have to ask a little bit of guidance at this point, Mr. Kelly.
At this time, Mr. Mayor, as a member of the Planning Commission, I'll give a very brief overview and then turn it over to the chairman, Matt Bundy, to open it up for the actual public hearing. After the Planning Commission finishes with its public hearing, there will be a call for a motion to make a recommendation to the council by the Planning Commission. And then at that point in time, the council would open its public hearing, take additional comments, and then decide whether or not to adopt as is on the first reading or to allow it to be a first reading with noted changes or amendments to be made. It will be read again not before the Planning Commission, but before the Town Council at the December meeting. So at this time, I will point out to everyone who is here tonight that under state law, every 5 years, under the Code of Virginia 15.2-2230, localities have the obligation to update their existing 20-year comprehensive plan. We have chosen to do the update internally as opposed to have a consultant do the update. We did this with various staff members, also relied upon our Planning Commission, as well as received some outside help from Mount Rogers Planning District and from DHCD as well on some of the components that were within the document. As it is an update, it's not a start from scratch type of thing, but rather is an attempt for us to update information that was put in it 5 years ago. As you know, census changed, school demographics, economic data, all of those things have changed over the course of time. We have not changed any of the maps that were in the previous plan, with the exception that we did add a map for our Arts and Cultural District. We have inserted various language to reflect proposed community development block grant projects in the Baltimore Ivy Street section and the Bradley and Rutherford Street neighborhoods. This does not mean just on these streets, but in the general neighborhood that they are located could also be brought into play. We also identified, as you know, Abingdon is very devoted to sustainability, and we put a lot of information in the plan about our efforts for sustainability of town-owned facilities and town-wide. We have provided update information from our Public Works Department relative to transportation initiatives, and we have implementation schedules throughout the chapters as well. We also have parks and recreation initiatives that have been proposed, one of which is ADA accessible playgrounds, more dog parks, and more parks in general for that matter. Relative to the ADA playground, I'll use this opportunity to point out a nice photograph that I believe Mr. Humphrey sent out to everyone that showed an accessible playground area. So we'd like to do more of that in town as well. We have addressed several public issues throughout the plan, one of which is our new Abingdon alert system, with the installation of Wi-Fi throughout much of the town in hopes of ultimately getting it every possible place in town, and also the installation of sirens to warn in the event of catastrophic weather events that may be coming our way. We've changed the name in one location of the proposed King School of Medicine to the proposed Southwest Virginia School of Medicine. It's not finalized yet, but nonetheless is still a proposed School of Medicine, so we felt the desire to put that in there, but to reflect it with the correct name that they've been moving forward with. It currently reflects all of the updates that have been recorded over the past 16 months in various planning commission meetings. I will have to say that this planning commission has worked very actively to go line by line through the comprehensive plan, make lots of comments and lots of provide lots of updated information to make it what we feel is perhaps the most accurate statement of the direction that we'd like to see the town go in the upcoming years. This will be something that will have to be done again in 5 years. The good thing is it only has to be done every 5 years, and it does take a lot of time, as I indicated, 16 months of reviewing and updating information and data was put into this by the Planning Commission, and I'd like to just commend the Planning Commission as a whole and the town staff for their vital component in bringing all this together. With that said, Mr. Mayor, I think I provided a brief overview. There is a copy, a hard copy of the plan over on the tables as you come into council chambers, and it is also listed on the town website. And with that said, if anyone has any other questions, I'll attempt to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bundy to open the public hearing.
Okay, as Mr. Kelly said, we're here for consideration of the comprehensive plan 2027 with 2013 update and revisions. I think I'll now open the floor for public input. If you would please come to one of the microphones and give your name and address before you speak to the commission. If anybody from the public would like to speak or address the commission regarding the comprehensive plan. Anybody would like to address the, or provide any public input for the comprehensive plan to the Planning Commission, please do so. Okay, based on that, close the public hearing portion of this special meeting of the Planning Commission, and would now entertain a motion from one of the commissioners regarding the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we present or approve the comprehensive plan, recommend that to the for its passage.
Okay. I'll second the motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend the comprehensive plan to the town council.
Ms. Rosenbaum?
Let's see, Mr. Bundy,
Aye.
Mr. Craig,
Aye.
Mr. Schuman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
and Mr. Howard.
Okay. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Planning Commission.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Now, this is going to seem like a little bit of a ritual here, or sort of a strange process, but the Planning Commission has just had their formal requirement to have a public hearing on this process and to take public input. Likewise, before and they, as a result of their work, they have made a recommendation, or making a recommendation to the town council that we approve on the first reading the plan as presented. We are also required to have a public hearing as a council to seek input from the community regarding the plan. And at this point in time, I will declare the public hearing to be open, and I will ask if there is anyone here present this evening who wishes to address the council regarding the proposed comprehensive plan and to offer any suggestions or comments. If so, they may come forward at this time.
Yeah, Rick Macbeth, 1139 Panorama Drive in Abingdon, Virginia. I was just going through the plan again. I haven't noticed anything on the outlining areas of Abingdon itself, the town. We talked about the town and everything else, but it's only like the center of the town. what are we doing on the comprehensive plan for the outlining areas of the town that are in the town limits, and we do pay town taxes, and we do, but we don't see anything that's addressing anything. Like, I live in Southview, and I didn't see anything in Southview there. And so we were acquired a number of years ago, and we've just been sitting out there. It gave you your bump that you needed to bring you back up to 8,000. So what is in the works, or what some of the things that can be done we're looking at to include in the comprehensive plan the outlining areas, other than just mainly just the straight center of downtown?
Okay. Well, let me make a couple of comments. First of all, I think possibly Mr. Howard was on the council at the time that annexation took place. None of the rest of us were here. I rather doubt it was done with the idea of bringing the town up to a population level of a certain point. But
it talks about that, sir, in your report.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I need to read it a little closer. I will say this. Now, I can't say that there are specific topics that are addressed in there, but are there areas that you feel should be in the comprehensive plan that for services to Southview and other communities that should be brought into the plan? This is an opportunity to bring that forward.
Well, there was some rumors of maybe having a park or something like that up in our area, or I know that we finally got a siren up there, so we can actually hear when there is a problem. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Wi-Fi and all that stuff, we don't get it up there because we're too far away. But there was talk about that, maybe put an antenna down in that area. And also we're looking at, I don't know what plans for accessible for sidewalks or anything like this, or access to, because a lot of times, a lot of people that come out there, they're going to walk around across down the road in the street to get access out to the main highway. And I know that Empire Drive happens to be part of the county. It's not part of the town, but everything in Southview is the town. It's just accessibility out to the rest of the town we don't have.
I think the plan does address additional Wi-Fi services, but you can't just do the whole town at one time. It's built in sections, and it's expanded, and I think that's in the plan, and I think it'll eventually come out your way. I'm sorry it's not there now.
It was just ideas. I'm not looking for time frames.
Right.
I would, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes,
I
sir.
might add something, I would also refer to the plan in that a lot of things are left to generalities, but the plan does address the corridors and the gateways of Abingdon on page 81, and refers to all three of our exits, exit 14, 17, and 19, and the entrance corridors and gateways, and talks about upgrading the street systems and the streetscapes in and around those areas, as well as Porterfield Highway, West Main Street, and East Main Street. It's pretty general. It's not specific in that it doesn't say Southview Estates or whatever. No. But
we just want to be included in the plan. That's all. Because we are part of Abingdon.
And we want you to be included as well. And I think the reference in here definitely includes the desire to have the three interstate exits at 14, 17, and 19. 19 being the one that most impacts your area.
And we all know about, I'm not going to bring up all the other things on 19 that we're still working on. We're well aware of all the traffic issues that we have out there.
And likewise, I think, I'm not asking Mr. McCall to respond, but
he stayed.
That's where you went wrong.
A lot of the whole thing will relate in that area to both town and county, working to make that area a better area overall, both within the town limits and just beyond the town limits.
Right. Yeah. And I concur, and you all certainly are a big part of the town. One of the things that is addressed on page 27 is that park accessibility, which calls for neighborhood parks, and it's one of the things that I think that all of our we kind of are very attuned to is trying to get these parks within walking distance of the neighborhoods. You're a prime example of a large neighborhood that would really benefit from a park situation. So, I think, and it is listed in there, not specifically, but as Greg says, in generalities, but that's something that certainly is on our radar, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it is, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're still, like I said, we're still dealing with the traffic issues. And we
Yeah.
don't know where that is still yet, so.
Yeah, we may need you to come with us to talk to the school board about the park, so.
Yeah, oh, I know what property that is too, yes.
And VDOT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of
All
course.
in-
Wasn't
VDOT.
that included in, wasn't that included in part of our plan as far as the walking trails?
Oh, yeah, it's in the urban pathway.
It's in the
project.
urban pathway also.
Yeah, where, access how into, coming through the
Well,
park, right?
those are the negotiations. that
Yeah,
have to
that's,
happen.
like I said, the only way we have to go, you gotta go to the county to get into us.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate, the reminder. Okay. Are there others who wish to address the council regarding the proposed comprehensive plan? Yes, sir, come forward, please.
I'm really sort of unprepared for this because I didn't know you were doing this tonight.
Well, we're glad you came, but...
It's Dave Wallace. I
Yes.
live at 377 Augusta Drive down in Winterham, and I'm thrilled to hear that the corridors are going to hopefully be a priority on this. I came here tonight hoping there'd be a short meeting so I could say something at the end. My concern, we've been here 17 years now. When we arrived in Abingdon, the plans were already proposed by VDOT for the reconstruction of 17. I don't expect that to happen in my lifetime. But no, I'm not being sarcastic. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is the town's inability to deal with VDOT. I've talked to a lot of people in the town, and it's, we can't do this because it falls under VDOT's jurisdiction or whatever. My feeling is, it's pretty obvious what VDOT feels about the importance of what is going on at our three exits. 17 obviously is my concern. Aesthetically, it really upsets me. I have people come in town, and you know I'm Canadian, that come because this is a tourist area. And one of the things they do remark about is the poor condition of that being an entrance into town. It's not very well kept. The ramps are always messy. My biggest concern down there, and our town attorney is aware, is I would like to know what we are going to do about vacant gas stations. They are getting so, I'm searching for something I can say politely about the way they look. Has anybody been down and seen what's going on presently at the station that's across from Long John Silver's? It's like a staging area now. There's asphalt piled up. There's a construction fuel tank there now. But the other day they were power washing the building. I don't see any signage as to what they're doing. We've got a car being sold at the old Citgo station, the old Stuckey building. I'm assuming that's what it was at one point in time. I just wish the town could come up with, if these gas stations are going to remain closed, a uniform form of keeping them closed and a standard that they have to maintain if they're going to be vacant.
Let me make a couple of comments, and I'm going to note for the record, David, we're having the public hearing about the comprehensive plan, and I believe the input that you're wanting to make is a great concern about our entries into town and the type of buildings and so forth that are allowed to be derelict, or that, excuse me, not allowed to be derelict, but are derelict at that area, and expressing a concern about keeping that area looking good. And I would say that's probably an accurate statement for the record, would it not be? And then we'll come to the other part.
Paraphrased it really well.
Thank you, sir. Now, the other part of the equation, you know, and again, we're focusing on this comprehensive plan right at this instant, but I can tell you two things, one of which is that our town staff really is conscious of the problems that we're having with those gas stations. We have a young fellow who is our code enforcement officer these days. He takes his work very seriously, and he's moving as rapidly as the law permits us to move forward on those things. But he's very serious about his business, and he's had great success so far, and I think give it a little bit more time, you will see some of those issues resolved, and some of them may actually go back into business at some point in the future, but we are quite aware of that. The other thing that I would say to you is that, now it depends on how long any of us might expect to live, but there actually may be some hope that some resolution on the Exit 17 problem may be underway. And I would encourage you, and as we've extended an invitation to the Board of Supervisors to join the Town Council on, I believe it's Tuesday the 19th at 6 o'clock at the Holiday Inn Exit 7, where VDOT will be having a public hearing on their plans. But we've been led to believe that the time may be right to actually get something accomplished at Exit 17. There's a whole lot of us that didn't think we would live long enough, may not, you know, to see that problem resolved, but we have seen indications that the time may very well be arriving. I would encourage you to attend that hearing, you know, at 6 o'clock that evening. The Town Council will be there. We're asking the Board of Supervisors to come and also join us regarding that. We'll have a resolution tonight on our agenda concerning Exit 17, but we have seen some indications that VDOT may actually be in a position to do something there. We do feel that it will involve, you know, certainly some major work on Exit 17, but it's certainly, I think I could say our council's position is that it's not just rebuilding that exit, that there are other roads that need to, you know, have some input to help move the traffic off of that. Exit 19 needs to be as part of the mix too, and that is sort of perhaps the major gateway to the coal fields rather than Exit 17. But I would encourage you to bring your friends, neighbors, anybody and everybody who lives south of Exit 17 to come to that meeting and, you know, and express their concern to VDOT that it needs to be a priority. And I know that you came here to offer your congratulations to one of your favorite people in the world here. She has a statistic that might be appropriate to enter into the record right now. Ms. During, I'll ask you to comment about that, particularly as it relates to the comprehensive plan. It's notable.
David, I'm happy to serve you in a new capacity. VDOT is, when you take VDOT's numbers of the traffic on I-81 and the traffic on Cummings, what's happening, which is causing us all a great deal of stress, is 1/3 of the I-81 traffic is being squeezed through those two lanes that are going underneath 81. Mm-hmm. It's resulting in a traffic accident every 6 days. So we believe putting it down in terms of that we've all seen and felt is one of our arguments going forward. That's being asked to accommodate 1/3 of I-81's daily traffic.
That's a lot of cars.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And before all that's done, you have the trash problem, and you have the cigarette butt problems, and you have all the stuff that looks like, as you were talking about, aesthetically, it just is unpleasing. I even offered to go up myself and pick that up and was threatened to be arrested if I went up there. That is state property. We can't trespass on it. Greg has been in the process of trying to work out an agreement where our crews can go up there, pick that trash up, make it look nicer, and make that entrance corridor right there as you get off. Maybe plant some shrubbery, do something to try to enhance that when they get off. Canada does it right. So we're hoping to look like Canada as far as that is.
I'm not trying to be nasty. But the problem is the people that come into our beautiful historic district, for the most part, are coming into the historic district for a reason. My concern is we're not enticing the people that are just getting off for a quick meal down there. We're not trying to entice them over the hill. And when they stop at the traffic lights, if somebody's panhandling or they're looking down at the stuff that's there. It's just a concern.
You're preaching to the whole choir right here.
Amen.
I have less hair than I had before because of trying to pull it out, trying to think of this.
Well, as far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, kind of pull it back together is, I think that we have tried in the comprehensive plan to address the aesthetics as well as the traffic flow in several areas of the plan. And, this plan is our working model. It's the document that we use when we go to meetings like the VDOT meeting. Those meetings are very important. We are all going together as a group to that meeting. And so, I think Mr. Kelly is correct. You don't want to write a plan that is so specific that you can't make changes. So again, we have the entrance corridors in our site and in the comprehensive plan, and we do take it very seriously. We've had more than one meeting about it, and it's not that that VDOT is a bad branch of the government. It's just that the Constitution allows certain things, and we all in government have to do all the due diligence, and it's a much slower process, and it's extremely frustrating because the process is slow.
The amazing thing is we get anything done at all.
Yeah, but it does eventually work, and I think everybody's frustrated that it works slowly, but in working slowly, it is a little bit more methodical than just a fly-by-night situation. So we do get it, and I think they get it also, but the process is a long one.
Please plan on coming out on the 19th. We'll hope to see everybody.
I agree with Mr. Humphreys. I'd be down there tonight with a miner's hat on, sweeping. That's how anal I am about these things, pardon me. But and I would I sort of fall into the case study of, let me ask for forgiveness, arrest me. Because I know Al Bradley's a good friend, and talking with Al with his dealings with VDOT in the past or on the fringe, they sort of time things with a sundial. And having owned my own business, I don't like to wait. I like to have a positive impact on things as quickly as possible. And I'm sorry to have taken up some
Amen. Amen.
But I'll be at the meeting.
That's good. And bring all of your neighbors.
Please.
Yeah, if we can get through exit 17 tonight.
I just want to add one thing to what's been said, and Mr. Humphreys alluded to it. We are really trying to get to that point with VDOT to where we can maintain the exit ramps and do some landscaping.
That's a great idea.
At that location. We'll probably never be able to get up on the interstate from exit to exit, but if we can maintain the ramps, it will make a great addition.
It will be super.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to address the council regarding the comprehensive plan? Last call. Okay. Hearing there appearing to be no other person who wishes to address the town council regarding comments on the proposed comprehensive plan, I will declare the public hearing to be closed. Thank you. Okay, I believe our council has reviewed the plan itself, and there were several ideas that we wish to bring into the plan, and I'll ask one of our council members to talk about that, please. I think Ms. Rosenbaum.
Actually, Ms. Rosenbaum is going to, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, at the earlier meeting tonight when we discussed the comprehensive plan, council wanted to include 3 things, I believe, on the first reading. You'll motion to approve with these 3 amendments. I'll detail those, and then we'll have it for a second reading at the next meeting, and those items will be included in the revisions. The first one was potential development of a bike trail following Hillman Highway from Abingdon to Emory and Henry and Glade Spring and connect with the Salt Trail. The second item, council would like to include the review of crosswalks in town to determine better lighting scheme for those. And the third thing would be an inclusion of the mixed-use feasibility study, which should be included in the economic development section of the comp plan. And those were the 3 items that you all mentioned downstairs in the work session.
I will ask at this time if council wishes to offer any additional suggestions regarding the comprehensive plan. Okay. Hearing none, I will note if we have a recommendation. Mr. Kelly, do you wish to make a comment, or is there just a
procedurally, Mr. Mayor, that I would recommend that in light of the volume of the plan itself, that the council dispense with actually reading the plan into the record.
Thank you, sir. That's an act of real mercy. All right.
Otherwise, these folks will be here for a while.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I would move that we accept the Plan Commission's recommendation to update the comprehensive plan of 2027 on the first reading with the accepted changes.
Okay.
And have a second reading in December.
Is there a second to that motion? We have. All right. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt the proposed comprehensive plan 2027 on its initial presentation with the noted additions that Ms. Rosenbaum read out earlier. Is there any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. And we wish to commend the Planning Commission and our staff for a very thorough and far-reaching look into the future of our community. We'll offer a round of applause to your work. Thank you again for your service. All righty. At this point in time, I believe we have an occasion for staff recognition. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it is my great pleasure this evening to recognize one of the town employees who is the operations manager at our wastewater, the Wolf Creek Water Reclamation Facility. And it's of particular significance because we don't often get to recognize people who've been with the town of Abingdon as long as Dan has. But I'd like to recognize Jerry D. Dan Callahan for being with the town of Abingdon, still with us for 35 years, wow. Believe it or not. So join me in a round of applause.
Dan, we're well represented. 4 of us at least.
He had a hard-working father who put in some time as well.
Oh, I did. He still thinks he does, too.
It's with great pleasure that I present you this plaque of 35 years of service along with a lapel pin for 35 years of service from the town of Abingdon, and well done.
Here, here.
You have to have your picture with the...
Okay.
Yes, the fashion.
I'll make one last comment about Dan, and that is that Dan was here when We transformed the wastewater treatment plant into the piece of work that it is today and won the highest honor of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Pisces Award, and a lot of tribute for that award goes to not only Mike Maiden, who is now retired, but also to Dan, who stood side by side with Mike for a lot of years. So thank you very much.
And I would note that Dan, in his spare time, is a bit of a noted entomologist and has done quite a bit of research this part of the world on moths. And yeah, and I certainly think that is should be recognized. It's not a area of his expertise that gets a lot of publicity or note, but he's done a lot of work in that over the years, and I'm certainly appreciative of what you've done there. And thank you very much. All righty. Council, we have 3 sets of minutes tonight for our consideration. We have the October 2nd, 2013 work session meeting, the minutes of the October 7th, 2013 work session, and then the regular minutes or the meeting from the October 7th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be noted for that?
Mr. Mayor, can I make
Yes,
my
ma'am.
own correction?
You may.
The gentleman who came to speak to the council about his issue with the traffic for the Washington County Fair,
Yeah.
I listed his last name incorrectly in the minutes. I've now gone back and corrected that. It should be Plummer and not Palmer, and I have made that correction. So I did want to let everybody know what's in there has been.
Yeah, P-A-L-M.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other corrections or additions to be noted? Council, what's your pleasure regarding these minutes?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept all 3 sets of minutes as presented with the noted correction.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented with the noted correction. Ms. Rosenbaum, if you call the roll, please.
Ms. Gerald?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan?
Aye, thank you. That brings us to consideration of the bid. We have a consideration of a bid for the replacement of the roof at the Coombs Recreation Center facility, and I see Mr. Kevin Worley with us this evening to talk about that project.
Good evening, Mayor Morgan and members of the council. I have a consideration before you, I believe you received in your council packet, to replace the roof at the Coombs Center. We advertised for bids on September the 25th. The bids came in and we read them aloud excuse me, on October the 23rd. We had 13 companies originally requesting information. We revised the bid packet at one time to correct or to add a couple of additional items in the scope of service. In doing so, we ended up with 4 companies who submitted a bid, and the project is actually funded through capital improvement funds, and the actual project budget was $185,000. The lowest bidder was Cornet Roofing with a base bid of $114,655. The highest base bid was $219,975, which was over our allotted budget. But I make the recommendation that we go with Cornet Roofing for $114,655. Everything that was requested and required for the bid, they met. All the references were contacted. They've actually done 9 of our local schools. They're currently doing the Neff Center and the Abingdon Town Center. They're very reputable in the community. The town staff have already worked with Cornet Roofing in past projects, so they are a very reputable company for the town to continue doing business with. Their base bid at $114,655, with any additional replacement of materials and supplies on the roof, will still fall well with under that $185,000 cap that we have allotted for the project. So I make the recommendation to the council to go with Cornet Roofing.
Okay, thank you. So again, based on your analysis and the information you've been able to garner, we can conclude that they're well under budget, they're reputable, and seem to be quite capable of successfully completing the work.
Yes, sir. They actually can start the project as early as next week, and it will only take approximately, weather permitting, about 5 weeks to complete the project.
Okay. Council, do you have questions of Mr. Worley regarding this matter, or any discussion about this?
Only if this doesn't slow down the roof on my church that I've been working on. They're going to be doing it too.
Cornet Roofing has guaranteed us that
it's a different kind.
they actually have more than enough staff to work on their current projects and start ours as early as November the 11th. So.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. Council, what's your pleasure regarding this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we accept the low offer at $114,000 from Cornet Roofing.
Second.
Good, we have a motion and a second to accept the low bid from Cornet Roofing, which was $114,000.
$655.
$114,655.
Thank you very much. $114,655. Yes, sir.
Could I interject?
You can.
I believe Mr. Worley has also indicated that there is likely going to be some additional costs that go into that, but the project will still stay well below the 185 that was authorized. So if the motion could reflect the base bid of $114,655 with any additional add-ons that are necessary.
Roofing add-ons.
Yes.
Replacing the insulation, if there's any damaged insulation roof, and the total insulation cost, if they had to replace all the insulation on the roof, is less than $25,000.
Okay.
So we would still be.
And do we need to note a cap on this project in the course of the motion?
The cap that's in the budget is 185, so we definitely would not go below that, above that, and it will very likely be probably $50,000 less than that number.
Okay, so again, if we have a recommendation that we accept the low bid that was presented from Cornet Roofing, which was $114,685? $655. Thank you, and we have a cap of $185,000 on the project.
Can I say that we should have a cap at $182,800 because that's the second bid? I wouldn't.
That's actually a good point, and
It is.
I would agree with that.
I agree with that, too.
All right. So again, we have a motion.
And an amendment.
That we will accept the bid from Cornet Roofing in the amount of $114,685 with add-ons, covering add-ons as necessary up to a maximum of $182,800.
And authorizing me to execute the documents there too.
I believe if Ms. Rosenbaum can make some sense out of that, we probably have it pretty well covered. I'm not going to repeat that. Does anybody have any additional comments or questions regarding the proposed motion? Okay. That being said, I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you very much, sir. That brings us to reports from the town manager. We have consideration of proposals submitted for the potential refinance of the town's Series 2009 A and B general obligation bonds for debt service savings. Mr. David Rose, who is serving as our town's financial advisor, is with us this evening, and he is Senior Vice President of Davenport & Company. Welcome, Mr. Rose, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have some hard copies as well. I know it's going to be up on the screen, so perhaps I'll give it to the town clerk and pass it around if you like. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you're passing them around, it's I can remember when we actually did the financing for the Coombs Center. And I remember we went to New York to get our first rating back a number of years ago. I think it was about 1991, 92, if I'm not mistaken. And so, 92, yeah, I remember that. So again, now the roof's going on, and it's a great facility. So. Well, again, hopefully this will be rather brief. I think we've got some more positives on the heels of the retreat that you were kind enough to let my colleagues and I be a part of, and we really do appreciate that. what we'd like to do this evening is just give you the results of the approach to looking at possibly saving some money, purely a debt service savings, with regard to what's remaining of 2 outstanding bonds. We are not talking about extending the debt, of course. We're simply talking about exchanging the existing interest rates for a lower interest rate. I would like to point out that when we went out on this process, we did what we call a competitive approach. We asked any and all banks in the Virginia and Southwest Virginia region, some of the national banks, as well as Northeast Tennessee, to show their interest. And we actually received 7 bona fide bids, which I must tell you, for a town, is as many bids as I can recall getting in years. And that's very much an indicator of the health and the well-being of the town. And again, that speaks very, very highly for the way the town is managed by both the staff as well as by the council here. So that's the first thing I'd like to make as a comment. On the next page there, we just wanted you to see of the nearly $3 million of initial debt outstanding, we're now down to below $2.5 million. You can see the annual debt service there on the various issues. They're really an A and a B series. They differ by interest rate, and collectively we have about a little under $2.4 million outstanding. You'll notice it says there the combined rate is actually 3.75%, not 375%. That would be a great savings, but it would be really high to pay that right now. But on a serious note, right now, again, blended, you're paying about a 3.75%. With that being said, we wanted you to see the summary of the bids. The 2 lowest bids was by Carter Bank and Trust and SunTrust. What distinguished those 2 bids from our perspective was that the folks over at Carter Bank and Trust did not charge a bank fee. So both interest rates were fixed for the entire remaining years, 11 years roughly, at a 2.25%. So again, we're going from about a 375 average to 2.25 that's fixed. What is interesting about that is we can prepay that at any time without penalty. Not sure there's a reason we'd want to do that, but again, the flexibility is certainly very much there. And it is plausible that maybe another 4 or 5 years from now, when there's only 4 or 5 years left, maybe something happens that rates are, again, even that much more favorable for only a short period, but you have that ability without penalty. So we think that's a very positive result. Then on the next page is the summary. The way we have shown this is the way I've always done this, and that is we're showing you the total savings, which is basically about $140,000. That's after all of the costs of issuance are factored in. We add on the high side the cost of issuance. So as I indicated to the town manager before the meeting, we think that it'll probably be closer to $150,000 when all of the dust is settled. And so at the very minimum, you're looking at the $140,000. We think it's going to go a little bit higher. A couple important points here. If you look at the far right-hand side, that averages about $13,000 a year after this partial year of 2014. And then you look at what we call a present value concept, and that really means that you can move numbers around a lot, but you can't move numbers around in present value. It's a mathematical calculation that shows, are we really saving money, or are we just moving numbers around? And you can see there you're almost 5.5% savings. in our industry as well as by the Commonwealth of Virginia. When you go forward on financings, anything north of 3% is viewed as a worthwhile financing. So we're basically going to be about twice that level of savings. So clearly it's a nice little, what I'll call cleanup financing. It's just basically the fact that lenders like what you're doing. They feel good about where the town is. This is not going to make or break your budget, but it certainly is another positive, and it helps for some of those various things that perhaps you're not expecting in a given year, so you're going to save some money. So with that being said, the last page here, and I must admit I did not see it on the agenda. We are asking if we could pass a resolution this evening for the actual issue. It's a roll call vote that we ask. And this was prepared by Bond Counsel, which is Webster Day at Spillman Thomas over in Roanoke, which we have all worked with for many, many years. So that's really what we're asking. This rate would stay in effect until the closing, which we anticipate to be basically by November 22nd. So that's what we're thinking about. Be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, do we have a proposed resolution for this?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the resolution came in over the weekend and actually got tweaked some even today by Mr. Day. If you'll recall, this was a very fast-track refinancing issue. And I believe Ms. Rosenbaum has handed out copies to you at the work session.
Downstairs at your places at the work session.
And it's just a matter of legality that authorizes us to issue into this refinance of an amount up to not to exceed $2.5 million, and the rate is 2.25%. And by adopting the resolution, you would also be authorizing me to execute any and all other documents that may be necessary to affect this refinance.
Okay.
This is almost an identical type of resolution to what you did a few months ago when we did the borrowing of the capital improvement money.
Okay, so again, the resolution that we have presented essentially would permit us to enter into a contractual relationship with Carter Bank under the terms that have been defined in the documents that we've received this evening to borrow, to essentially refinance at a lower rate the existing loans or existing bonds that we have at the present time. And it's anticipated that the savings would be at least $140,000.
140 and possibly 150, according to Dave.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Put that in the record. Mm-hmm.
As town manager, I would request that the council enter into the resolution authorizing me to execute any and all further documents in this regard.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, we have a recommendation from Mr. Rose and from Mr. Kelly that we adopt the resolution that has been presented to us authorizing us to refinance the 2009 Series A and B bonds at the lower rate. What is your pleasure regarding this, council?
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and do this.
Okay. All right, we have a motion that we go ahead and adopt this resolution and authorize our staff to move forward on this. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any questions about this? Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
And Mayor Morton?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We
Thank you, Mayor,
appreciate it.
Mr. Members of Council. Again, appreciate being here. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Do you need any of your extra copies?
Yeah. Let's just say pass this along. So,
All
thank you.
right. And, all righty. I've had a request that we make one change in our agenda this evening, and I'm going to respect that request. We have this evening a resolution regarding the life and the passing of one of our town's most noted citizens, the late Mrs. Martha Weisfeld, who was really contributed in many ways to the life and the progress of the town of Abingdon, Virginia. And we have Mr. Rob Weisfeld with us this evening. Do you have any other members of your family, Mr. Weisfeld, that are here tonight?
No.
Okay.
Flying solo.
All righty. We're pleased to have you. And let me offer, first of all, our condolences on the passing of your mother. She was a great lady and a noted character, and a woman who, I was proud to know her and to see the many contributions that she made to the town, and she was she called it like she saw it, and there was no doubt about that, and we were very fortunate to have her with us. And it's customary to read these resolutions into the minutes of the meeting. And if you will bear with me just a minute, sir, while I find my copy, it will be my pleasure to do that. And I have been handed somebody who's a little more adept at turning these things up tonight than I am. And I have before me, and I'm of an age where I sort of need to take my glasses off to read, but it's my pleasure to read this into the record tonight. We have before us a resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, in recognition of the lifetime accomplishments and contributions of an outstanding character and town legend, Martha M. Weisfeld, who was with us from 1926 to 2013. And whereas on September 29th, 2013, the council learned of the passing of lifelong town resident and colorful spirit Martha M. Weisfeld, and whereas Martha Eveline McCready was born in 1926, the second daughter of Lawrence and Lillian Powell McCready, and whereas Martha, who excelled in academia from an early age, was an honored graduate of Hiawassee Junior College and shared top honors with her fraternal twin sister in their graduating class at the University of Tennessee. And whereas Martha returned to her Washington County roots immediately following the completion of her education to give back to her community by serving as a public school teacher for several years, no doubt instilling a mode of discipline, work ethic, and style that left many with lifelong, lasting impressions. And whereas, in 1946, Martha married Charles Edward Weisfeld, a decorated World War II veteran and heir apparent to a family newspaper, and settled down to begin her own family in her beloved Abingdon, Virginia. And whereas, as Martha, always raising the bar and setting the example for women of her day and beyond, chose to be a stay-at-home mother for her 3 children while managing to run a kindergarten, teach Sunday school, chair her church circle, lead brownies and scouts, volunteer at the Johnston Memorial Hospital, become involved in a wide variety of community and governmental events, and share the Red Cross as well as the Washington County United Fund. And whereas in 1976, Martha, who had demonstrated an avid interest in a variety of levels of the newspaper business as an adolescent and teen, became co-owner of the local newspaper, the Abingdon, Virginia, with her husband Charles. And whereas Martha M. Weisfeld served initially as a publisher of the Abingdon, Virginia newspaper, one of Washington County's oldest small businesses, where she worked for over 30 years, providing a unique perspective on information she deemed of interest and written in such a manner that community professionals and residents alike anticipated each weekly publication, wondering what was on Martha's mind that week. And whereas Mrs. Weisfeld's newspaper, for which she eventually became editor, was for many years the most colorfully written, controversial, and fearless body of work to ever chronicle the happenings of the town of Abingdon, Virginia. And whereas the council recognizes the unique and outstanding contributions made to Abingdon by Martha M. Weisfeld and desires to honor her memory and offer their sincere condolences to her 3 children, Ann Weisfeld Gray, Mary Lyon Weisfeld, and C. Robert Weisfeld, and now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, that the legend of Martha M. Weisfeld will live forever on the streets of Abingdon's cherished historical district, in the hearts and minds of Abingdon residents, young and old, and in the written body of work published in the Abingdon, Virginia newspaper for 30 years by the one and only Martha M. Weisfeld. It is with pleasure. Council, what is your desire regarding this resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve this resolution as read.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution commemorating the life and times of Martha Weisfeld. Any further discussion or comment? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Thank you very much. Now, do we by any chance have a copy of that resolution with us this evening?
We can probably get one. Do you have a hard copy, Cecilia?
I do not have a hard copy with me. I wanted to wait until you all made your motion and passed it, and then I'm going to have it framed, and Deb and I will probably make a trip up to visit Robert to deliver that. That would be all right with council.
And I believe it will even be signed by the mayor.
Well, I think Mrs. Weiss will be very pleased that the person, they had a lady that did the nomination and then one that seconded it, and I think that would have made her very proud to have 2 women on the town council right now.
Absolutely. And we certainly recognize your mom and what a wonderful character and the contributions that she's made, and we are very, very sorry at her passing, but she added an awful lot to this town, and it is with pleasure that we offer this resolution this evening and provide you with a framed copy of it.
Thank you. Here.
Very good, sir.
Here.
All righty. I might add that the entire Weisfeld family has made a lot of contributions to the life and character of our community, and we thank you for that. We have a presentation this evening by the Old Glade Antique Tractor Association. Ron Stevenson and Carol McCroskey, I believe, are with us this evening. They've been very patient. Come forward, please.
I am Ron Stevenson, President of Old Glade Antique Tractor Association. This is Carol McCroskey. She is a member. We thank you for the opportunity to speak about our organization. Old Glade Antique Tractor Association is a nonprofit organization formed in 2008 to preserve agricultural history and display antique farm equipment. With members from Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee, we are grateful for the opportunity to be at Fairview Homestead. When we arrived at Fairview, our goal of preserving agriculture history became a reality. The town of Abingdon has great agricultural history with Hagee Wagon Company, Pet Milk, and many tobacco warehouses serving farm families. Washington Farmers Co-op, opened in 1947, is still in business today in the same location. We now have 17 pieces of equipment either donated or on loan to our group, and many of these are stored in the barn at Fairview. We now have the opportunity to demonstrate wheat binding, thrashing, hay pressing, and many other farm practices for the public. Last Friday, November the 1st, we gave a presentation at the Washington County Fairgrounds for the 4th grade classes from the Washington County schools. The cropland at Fairview was very rough when we arrived. Our members spent many days preparing the ground, removing trash, eradicating thistles, Old Glade members donated their own time, fuel, personal equipment, and funds for the wheat seed, cleaning the barn, and other tasks in an effort to bring the land to its present state. Old Glade's first tractor show at Fairview Homestead grounds was in 2011 in the front yard and consisted of 50 tractors. The 2012 show consisted of 77 pieces of equipment and demonstration of the thrashing machine with wheat that was grown and harvested at the Fairview Homestead. Power for the thrashing machine was a 1915 Frick steam tractor that was so new in Abingdon. The highlight of 2012 was that Old Glade Antique Tractor Association was able to give back to the community by planting potatoes at the Fairview grounds and harvesting 1,400 pounds of potatoes to donate to the local food bank. 2013 has been a banner year with donations from the Bank of Maine, Walmart Foundations, and Wells Fargo. We planted sweet corn, potatoes, and harvested 3,100 pounds for the local food bank. The 2013 show was a 3-day show held the last week in July and consisted of 120 pieces of equipment and vendors. Demonstrations consisted of spinning wheel, corn meal grinding, hit and miss engines, 2 different thrash machines, a stationary hay press, a 1940 corn chopper, and the highlight of the show was a team of horses pulling a 1900 McCormick Deering reaper made of wood. About 1,500 people attended this show, even though Saturday was raining. The show was listed on internet tractor sites. Calls came from Richmond to Knoxville requesting information about the show, hotels, restaurants, and camping facilities. We are planning a 3-day show in 2014 on July 24, 25, and 26. Our plans are to feature a rare horse-drawn Hagee wagon manufactured by the Hagee Wagon Company.
Wow.
Again, in 2014, we would like to plant and harvest more food crops at Fairview for local food banks if we can obtain enough donation for fuel, fertilizer, and seed. In closing, the Tractor Association would like to thank the Fairview Homestead Committee, the town of Abingdon, and the local business for support given to us and the opportunity to further our mission using the Fairview Homestead property. We look forward to a continued partnership to preserve history and educate by demonstrations while also serving the community. Is there any questions I can answer?
Well, I should say, first of all, we should be thanking you. And, that's an impressive contribution that you've made and, and really quite an impressive level of growth that you've had in this event and the contributions. And I think what you're doing really is very helpful in terms of helping to preserve the history. It really fits well into the mission of Fairview as well. So I don't think we could find anything that is could be much more consistent with the two things. And we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to partner with you. I will confess that I have a secret desire over the long haul, and if we can find a way to meet everybody's requirements, that we might be able to generate some corn from the property that could go to White's Mill. They've been having to purchase everything that they use from Kentucky to get a food grade, and so I know that Mr. Taylor and others, can help work on that process and perhaps make sure we could come up to a standard. I've been handed a note here, and I'll bet somebody will be willing to comment further on that.
Well, I can comment further. First of all, I'd like to mention that Sean Taylor was the first contact with the Old Glade Tractor Association. He's the one that kind of got them on board. They have been wonderful partners, almost silent partners till this year, and then they can't be any longer because we have 2 board members now, and so they have to speak up and say all the wonderful things they do, because we ask them every time that they come in. It's wonderful that we have a food bank, and that we, the town of Abingdon, really are indirectly donating to that. It's something that I'm not sure a lot of communities have done, and the Tractor Association will continue to do that if they have enough money. So that kind of brings us to the point, and of course they certainly aren't here to ask for money. I just happen to know that they're in need of about $2,500.
Oh, yeah.
They are. They're about $2,500 to help would help them immensely in achieving their goal of their food, of what they want to grow this year in their crops. So I'm just putting it out there.
So you're basically mentioning that if...
Well, I would make that a motion. I think I could do that.
All right.
I would like to make a motion that we take $2,500 out of council contingency and donate that to the Old Glade Tractor Club.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to provide that donation, but it sounds to me like it's basically an investment in our local food bank.
In our communities.
To do that, and as well as promoting our agricultural history and several things that can contribute to the local economy. And is there any further discussion about that? Okay, we have a motion again to provide a donation, quote, investment, to support the Old Glade Tractor Association. And I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here, and I've written it down, and I will do my best to be out there and, see things this year. I'm very impressed with what I've heard tonight.
Thank you.
Come and be there.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming. Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Okay, we have, our next item is consideration of proposals for the Sinking Spring Cemetery Columbarium Project. Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this will be very quick. We put a RFP out to try to get some interest with some of the funeral homes around to want to partner with the town in some regard to build or construct or build a columbarium in the Sinking Spring Cemetery or in property adjacent to it. We did not receive any bids or proposals, rather, in that regard. We did have one funeral home indicate to us that they did not feel that there was a market area for it based on the numbers of folks who are cremated in the Southwest Virginia region, and believe that the percentage of the people who actually wind up in niches are very low and is dispersed among several other columbariums around. I don't want to give up the notion of this, and I have scheduled a cemetery meeting with our newest members for, I believe, November the 16th. Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
And I'd like to revisit this issue with the committee members and come back to the council perhaps at the December meeting with a recommendation of what we think we could possibly do in this regard to revive it or move it forward in some way.
Seems like an odd sort of notion to revive the project for the dead, but
It's not dead yet.
No, it's not, and I'll withhold any other comment on that. But thank you for the effort being made, and we are exploring. I think it's well worth considering to explore, and we will certainly have this on the agenda at the Cemetery Commission meeting. And I presume there's no further action required by us this evening on that. Okay, thank you very much. We have a resolution for our consideration. which is a resolution by the town of Abingdon, Virginia, to express concern to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation regarding the unsafe driving conditions for the exit 17 area of the town of Abingdon, Virginia. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, if you bear with me just a minute, Mayor, so I'm fine. Okay.
I'm looking for mine, too.
Here we go. If council will recall, I advised you at the last meeting or work session that we had that we had been contacted in light of some correspondence that I had sent out to VDOT officials that perhaps the Exit 17 project was not dead and could be revisited. They indicated at that point in time for us to perhaps adopt resolution and to bring as many people to the upcoming 6-year plan public meeting in Bristol as possible to voice our concerns. So what I did, if you will recall, about 6 years ago, I guess it was, shortly after, maybe it was actually longer than that, but shortly after I became town manager, we loaded the entire group up and we went to Richlands and did something similar in Richlands. And so we've prepared a resolution that puts the most current data that Chief Sullivan and John Dew have provided to us with regard to wrecks and property damage at the Exit 17 location. So you have before you a resolution that strongly urges the VDOT officials and the Department of Transportation to move forward with Exit 17. I have also contacted Jason Berry, the county administrator, and requested that he consider this with his board as well, and that we try to get as many people, both elected officials and business owners, residents, at that meeting to just flood the heck out of them, and perhaps we'll get them to put this back into a priority for redevelopment. It's absolutely necessary. It's only getting worse, and I think the figures that Jane mentioned earlier clearly demonstrate that. And we've got a long backlog of history of statistics and what have you that we're prepared to bring and discuss at that upcoming meeting. But my request tonight is that the council adopt the resolution, and that rather than adjourn our meeting at the conclusion tonight, that we recess it to November 19th and every one of us go to that meeting at VDOT.
Okay, that being said, thank you. We have a resolution for our consideration, and I'll ask our Vice Mayor, Mrs. Lowe, to read it into the record, please.
A resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, to express concern to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation regarding the unsafe driving conditions of the Exit 17 area of the town of Abingdon. Whereas Interstate 81 is the primary thoroughfare through the town of Abingdon, Virginia, and whereas Exit 17 off of Interstate 81, which is maintained in all aspects by the Virginia Department of Transportation, has remained essentially unchanged since the establishment of the interstate in the 1960s, and whereas the area surrounding Exit 17 has experienced extensive commercial and residential growth over the past 50 years, and whereas the Virginia Department of Transportation is solely responsible for all signalizations, signage, and traffic flow off of Interstate 81 at Exit 17. And whereas the Town Council of the Town of Abingdon deems it is in the best interest of the citizens and visitors of the Town of Abingdon to express its concern to the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation about the unsafe and inefficient transportation conditions that have arisen over the years as a result of the increased traffic congestion in the Exit 17 area. And whereas the Abingdon Police Department over just a 5-year period has recorded a total of 325 crashes on Cumming Street at or near Exit 17 involving involving 651 vehicles with an estimated total vehicle damage figure of $665,450 from January the 1st, 2007 to December the 31st, 2012. And whereas the average daily traffic count last supplied to the town of Abingdon in 2012 by the Virginia Department of Transportation was approximately 17,000 vehicles per day on Route 75 between exit 17 and Main Street, and approximately 7,500 vehicles per day between exit 17 and the town's south corporate limits, and 41,000 acres average annual daily traffic on Interstate 81 at exit 17. And whereas the Council of the Town of Abingdon is committed to making the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation aware of the increasing dangerous conditions around the exit 17 area, and requests any upgrades and improvements of this exit be given the highest priority. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia does hereby request that the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation immediately review and finalize their plans for exit 17 of Interstate 81 in the Town of Abingdon. And be it further resolved that the Town Council of Abingdon does hereby request that the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation take measures as expeditiously as possible to upgrade and improve the said exit 17 area to ensure that the citizens and visitors of the town of Abingdon are not further endangered by a traffic flow and congestion that presently exists at this exit. And be it further resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon does hereby request the Commonwealth Transportation Board to allocate all funds necessary for the Virginia Department of Transportation to fully fund and carry out this project in its current 6-year plan for modification of exit 17 of Interstate 81.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Council, what's your pleasure regarding this resolution?
I make a motion, we pass it.
Okay. Is there a second to that effect?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to adopt the resolution as read. Any discussion? I might note that perhaps you would consider an amendment to your motion, Mr. Howard, that we adopt this, and we also forward a copy of it to the Washington County Board of Supervisors, asking them to consider adopting it as well.
Well, that sounds good to me.
Okay, and would that go along with your second as well?
I would.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deary?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you very much. See what happens when you come out here, you know?
I think I'm going home.
You're good luck, Supervisor. Stay here with us.
I have 2 more meetings this week, and need to see my family at least a little bit.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks for coming,
We
Phil.
appreciate the
A little
invitation.
more excitement in this meeting.
No, we don't.
And I would further say on this resolution that we request that once we get to the 5.5-year mark, they don't take us out of the 6-year plan, because that's what happened the last time.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. But thank you very
Yeah,
much,
thank you, Phil.
Good to see you. Okay.
Mr. Wallace, you just missed the whole resolution about Interstate 81, exit 17. But we're going to print a copy and let you. Yeah.
You know, okay. That brings us to matters that are not on the agenda, and,
One more resolution, Mayor, if I may interrupt.
oh, you probably do.
Don't do.
Okay, this is consideration of a resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, in support of the town's application for an allocation of $355,150 through the Virginia Department of Transportation's Revenue Sharing Program for the Park Street Pedestrian Improvement Project. Mr. Dew.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This resolution is part of the process, as a lot of you are familiar with, to request revenue sharing funds from VDOT, which amounts to a 50-50 split to fund projects. And I think I'm just excited about the possibility of another sidewalk project in town, so I thought it was going to present this.
Well, you're experienced and getting good at it.
That's right, getting better at it. So This project in concept covers the area of Park Street roughly from Pecan Street over to Tanner and Tanner Street up to Main Street. And it would kind of complement or work with the Urban Path project that we have going on as well to try to tie all that together. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, that area has some sidewalk on a portion of Park Street, but it is in pretty poor condition. And like a lot of these other projects, not only are we looking to improve the sidewalks and pedestrian access, but there will also likely be some storm drainage improvements to go along with that. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to respond to them.
I'd just like to point out to council that this is not in any way obligating us at this point in time. It's merely the application process for the funds. And I would also point out that Mr. Jackson, who is not present tonight, and I have been discussing another grant for this actual area with DHCD. It was brought to my attention back a couple of years ago that we might be eligible for some streetscaping in that area, and Todd Christensen volunteered at that point in time to help seek out those funds. So we're trying to tap into two possible sources that might be available. But as everyone knows, that area is up and growing, and so we would like to at least have funds in place if we get to the point that we think that we can do that project.
And if I could add real quickly, the application was turned in before November 1st deadline. Typically, the Commonwealth Transportation Board won't make that decision about funding statewide until at least December or maybe into January. And the funds, if they're awarded, would be available starting July 1 of 2014.
I think everybody on this council is so happy to see the development and the things that are going on at the Park Street, Tanner Street area. I don't think you're going to have any opposition to sidewalks if we do get the money.
I do have a question though, because as Mr. Jackson, I wish was here, could tell us. He's the local historian now, but the three original streets in Abingdon were Valley Street, Main Street, and Water Street, which now is called Park Street. I would hope that these sidewalks would be brick sidewalks, not just concrete sidewalks, since you're looking at a historic area, and also, one of the original first three streets. Do you know what they're asking, or do you know what we haven't planned anything yet, but it's something that could evolve in that. So,
I'm sorry. What was the question?
We're nowhere near making the decision.
No. It would be decided definitely during the design process, but we can certainly look at that option.
This is definitely noted.
Sure, absolutely.
Very good. All righty. Mr. Howard, would you read that into the record, please?
Okay. Resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, in support of the town's application for an allocation of $355,150 for the Park Street Pedestrian Improvement Project through the Virginia Department of Transportation Revenue Sharing Program. Whereas the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia desires to submit an application for an allocation of funds of up to $355,150 through the Virginia Department of Transportation fiscal year 2015 revenue sharing program, and whereas $355,150 of these funds are requested to fund the Park Street pedestrian improvements consisting of preliminary engineering, right-of-way, utilities, and construction required for approximately 3.34 miles of new sidewalk replacement, and drainage and roadway improvements on Park Street from Pecan Street to Tanner Street, and Tanner Street from Park Street to East Main Street. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia hereby supports this application for the allocation of $355,150 to the Virginia Department of Transportation Revenue Sharing Program for the Park Street Pedestrian Improvement Project, and further authorize the town manager to execute any and all project administration agreements for an approved revenue sharing project.
All righty. Council, what's your pleasure regarding this resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve this resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Okay, now that brings us, I believe, to items not on the, matters not on the agenda. And I know we have some folks here with us tonight, some that are still left with us. Is there anyone present this evening that wishes to bring any matters before the town council this evening? I will note there's a couple of young-looking fellows back here in the back. By any chance, are you scouts that are perhaps working on your citizenship in the community merit badge? I'd appreciate it if you'd introduce yourselves.
I'm Preston Dillard. I'm from Troop 222, 29.
All right. Very good. Barry Proctor, I think, may still be your scoutmaster. I might just happen in my pocket here in front of me. If you'll come forward. You've been so patient tonight. I do have a couple of the highly coveted Town of Abingdon lapel pins. You know, they are not official regalia to go on your scout uniform, but by golly, I'm sure you fellows will wear them with pride. And you've earned them just by being here and staying awake as we've made so.
Thank you.
We appreciate that, and I do have a couple of comments that I try to make when we have folks here, and by golly, I'll keep them brief. But it's one of these things that we're going to have an election tomorrow, and there's a lot of excitement about the gubernatorial, well, I don't know if there is a lot of excitement about the gubernatorial election. Certainly the presidential elections and so forth, we tend to have a lot of excitement and everybody gets anxious about who they're going to vote for. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the level of government that has its greatest impact on your daily life, it's right here at this local level. You know, it's here in the town of Abingdon, it's in Washington County, Virginia, because the reality of it is that the decisions that we make here, they have an impact on the quality of the schools where you go to, the roads that you drive on to get to those schools, whether or not they have potholes in them, whether our chief of police, Chief Sullivan, is keeping our town safe and where you feel safe being in our town, or if Mr. Howard and company show up with a fire truck when you have it. And all those are local decisions. It's also the level of government that has the least actual involvement by citizens, but it's the level of government that you can have the biggest impact on. You know, you see folks tonight who's brought matters to our attention. The folks regularly do that. They know where we live. So I would encourage you to take a strong interest in local government, be involved, because it is the part of government that has the biggest impact on your life, and again, the part that you can have the most influence on. Thank you for being with us this evening and for staying awake. You've done well.
That's right.
All righty. Anybody present who does wish to bring a matter to the council's attention? Okay, hearing no one else at the present time, I do believe we have a matter regarding the Tourism Advisory Commission that we need to address. We don't always get it right ourselves. Would someone care to walk us through that, please?
Mr. Mayor, I will mention that at the last council meeting, it was thought that there were 3 vacancies on the Tourism Advisory Committee. And council at that time made 3 appointments to that committee. In fact, there were only 2 members on 2 vacancies on the committee, and as a result, it's necessary tonight for the council to rescind the prior motion appointing 3 and in place appointing 2 to that committee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the motion that I made at the last council meeting be rescinded. Mr. Howard, second.
I'll also rescind the second that I made to her motion.
Okay, so we have a, recognizing the error of our ways, we have a motion to essentially rescind the appointments of all 3 individuals that we made at our last council meeting. Is there any further discussion about this matter? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering.
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you. Now, I'll bet I could entertain another motion regarding that matter.
And, Mr. Mayor, I move that we appoint to the Tourism Advisory Committee Martha Keys with the Historic Society and Janet Woolwine with Alackley Yarn.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint to the Tourism Advisory Commission Ms. Janet Woolwine and Ms. Martha Keys. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Jordan? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, and we have appointments to boards and committees. That brings us to, we have an appointment, first of all, for our consideration for the Abingdon Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and the position of Mr. Dan Smith he's completing his first term. I find that he is, it has been determined he is eligible for a second term. Then on the Planning Commission, Mr. Wayne Austin, he is also eligible for a second term. What is your pleasure regarding these appointments, please?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we reappoint both of these people to their respective committees.
Okay, is there a second? We have a motion and a second to reappoint Mr. Dan Smith and Wayne Austin to the...
Good Rotarians.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, good Rotarians.
Good.
All right. On second thought, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We won't hold the membership of the Rotary Club against them. We value their service. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
May I clarify the second on that? Is that Mr. Humphreys with the second?
All right.
No, I wasn't the second, I was the motion.
You're the motion, who's the second?
Kathy.
Kathy.
Didn't be anything
Sorry.
here. Okay.
It's been a long day.
Yes, it
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphreys?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
All right, thank you. Council member reports. Council, do we have anything we wish to bring to the table at the present time?
I actually forgot, there were two things, mine are small. One of them is, in the Fairview Committee being, or the people from the Old Lake Tractor Company, Ron and Carol, when I saw them, I immediately thought of, if you have not been by Fairview, you need to go up there. They plow the grounds, they've sown for winter wheat. Absolutely, the grounds are beautiful around there. If you haven't been there, take time to do that. We recently met with Betsy White. Betsy White is going to get together the educational component that we're going to use for the Fairview Homestead, and so hopefully we're going to have some good things. We already have good things happening. We hope to have additional things that are going to be going on there that are going to be that you're going to be proud of. The second thing is, and I was thinking Kevin Sigmund would be here tonight. He is not here tonight, and that is the tree initiative for planting of new trees. A lot of people received these, not everyone, but basically it was in our packet. And the Tree Commission is pleased to announce in Abingdon the Abingdon Tree Initiative, a program to encourage residents living within the town limits to plant trees on their property. This program offers a redeemable voucher for trees purchased and planted before June 1st, 2014. Any tree costing up to $200 enables the homeowner to receive $25 rebate, while tree costing over $200 enables the homeowner to receive a $50 rebate from the program. Now, this is eventually what's going to be an entire town program, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you might get some phone calls on this. It is not all-inclusive right now. We've started basically with the area that's south of the interstate, which, as you remember, was devastated by the tornado, and because of that, there's going to be replanting. We want to make sure they have proper trees that aren't under power lines, trees that are proper distance from homes, and so because of this, that's why that we started with this group. Now we hope to be able to, in the next couple of years, be able to have reached every neighborhood in Abingdon and offered this program to each and every homeowner that is in Abingdon. That was the thing I had, and that was it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and and I appreciate you reminding us of that. And there's two things that I think you pointed out that were very accurate. One of which is that in general we're trying to increase the urban forest canopy that we have within the town of Abingdon. But you also noted that we're talking about planting the right trees in the right place, and a certain amount of the difficulties we had from the tornado experience came from the problem of having wrong tree in the wrong place. Mr. Kelly, what was the figure that we, I think it was 450 dump truck loads of tree debris that we hauled out of Country Club?
Yeah, it was very significant, what came out of there.
Yeah, so we had a major loss.
I do know that Kevin has been really actively working on the neighborhoods out there that were affected and trying to get them on board to do things, as he has been with, I believe, Glen Roky Country Club as well.
Can we put that on Wolf Whistle? A tree rebate?
Yeah, we can get
Absolutely. And Mr. Mayor, this goes right along with what you were talking about. And for people who don't know, Ed Morgan and Bob Howard, I'm the beneficiary of them being on this committee, and I'm on the committee now on the Tree Commission, and they were the leaders who really have brought this around. It's taken a while to develop. It's as Ed always says, it's making the sausage. We finally got a little squirt out, and this is what it looks like. And but anyway, but Bob and Ed, thank them for this initiative. I think that I get to like I say, be the beneficiary because I'm on the committee now. But they certainly have worked long and hard to bring this to fruition. And this is all part of what's called the UTC, which is the Urban Tree Canopy, which, believe it or not, you would think that a town of our size and of our trees, we would have a huge urban tree canopy, and ours is less than a lot of towns like Christiansburg and Blacksburg, and I think possibly even Richmond. And it's amazing that we do not have the trees. There's a lot of reasons, we won't get into those, but we're trying to increase that UTC. So thank you. And that's it.
We appreciate the
Thank you for all y'all's hard work.
Well, it's been a great committee. It's done an awful lot for the town, and it is one of the things, guys, I'll mention to you, it's really been a surprise to us to learn what an impact the trees have in our town in terms of quality of life, and also how expensive it is to manage it. It's a real asset, but it's one of our community resources that we really have to take care of, to get its full benefit and to not make a problem out of the way. Vice Mayor Lowe.
Three things. I attended a Heartwood Committee, Marketing Committee meeting today, and the committee is in search of their guidance from the Southwest Virginia Cultural Heritage Foundation. The foundation is going to have a retreat to define all the roles they will be playing and who has the authority to do what, and hopefully that will help the tourism committees in all of the communities once those definitions are made. So it was a 3-hour meeting, and that's a synopsis. Economic Development Committee is going to be approached hopefully, and I just want to ask Ms. Rosenbaum maybe just to put this on the agenda. Ms. Howard is going to come talk to us about a project that's going on with everybody's involved, the Marshall County Chamber of Commerce, the incubator, the town of Abingdon, and they're going to need some support from the Economic Development Committee. So if you could just put that on next month's agenda.
On the council's agenda?
On the council's agenda, because they're going to ask for some financial support, I think. Okay, and then my time is up on the Senior Center Board December, and I do not wish to be reappointed, so the council could start thinking about who you would like to have serve on that board.
I think we're all looking down toward the end of this right here.
And the reason I bring that up is that their bylaws stipulate that they are supposed to have held an election at the past meeting. However, they don't have a full slate of officers. So.
Anything else?
I would like for Mr. Wallace to give our clerk his mailing address, because I really do think you'd enjoy having a copy of this resolution. It would help you maybe garner some support from your neighbors for the meeting.
I got it when he spoke.
Okay. That's it.
Anything else? Mr. Howard?
Just, it's not on the announcements, but reminder of the meeting this Saturday at the fire station for it's kind of a kickoff for the trail that's supposedly going to go through town, hopefully. Anyway, they have several stations set up where people can come by and look at the initial engineering that they've done on it. But free hot dogs. It's from noon to 3 this Saturday.
And the brewery opens at 3.
Saturday? I think
No, they don't. The brewery opens at 1 to 8.
We're trying to catch them before they get there.
All righty.
But that's this Saturday.
Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Mrs. Dury.
If I may, I'd like to comment on Chief Sullivan's report. I just want to say, I don't know if congratulations is the appropriate word, the closure of the Madison Sneed case. I remember when that happened and how upset some of your officers were, and you've been working on it a long time. I'm glad it came to a satisfactory. Again, those aren't the right words, but.
Well, thank you. It's difficult for everybody involved, but at least the community making you. Glad you feel like you did. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I tell you one more thing?
Would you say anything further? Okay. Go right ahead.
The Tobacco Commission called me at the incubator, and they are going to host the economic development portion of their committee. They're going to have that meeting at the incubator on November the 21st from 9 until 3. And both of the committees that are involved with the Workforce Excellence Project will be meeting that day at the incubator.
All right.
One other thing, under the announcements, it is not listed, and to let everyone know, there is a Veterans Day celebration at the Veterans Park. It will be on November the 11th at 11 o'clock, 11:11. And I do not have my program with me, I'm sorry, but they have a very dynamic speaker this year, and so I think that everybody anyone that would like to come, we certainly would love to have you. November the 11th at 11 o'clock at the Veterans Park, located on,
Cook.
Well, it's Cook, but what's the name of it?
Webb Drive.
Billy Webb.
Drive.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the first time.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
I'd just note a couple of other announcements as well that are of importance. And one is November the 14th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Southwest Higher Education Center. It's a farewell reception to Joe Johnson, and the town of Abingdon did sponsor, I believe, a table at that event. So I encourage as many of us as possible to go by. I think it's just a walk through and what have you. And any money that is left over from the contributions of the sponsor is going to go to a scholarship fund. So we all know how important Joe was to our area for many years. So if everybody's available, I think it's a great opportunity to go out and say goodbye to Joe. And I will mention, even though I think it's just tentative at this point in time, but there may be the event at Food City on November 21st. And I'm assuming that we'll get something formalized in the mail. So if you just keep your calendar open for November 21st at 6 p.m.
5 p.m.
Oh, is it 5 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I've got a special request, first of all, of our town clerk. There's no way in the world I'm going to keep up with all the stuff that has been laid out here this evening. I have a bad record of getting it all on the calendar to begin with, but I would ask, please, if you would sort of help me in particular and all of us on council to have a straight agenda of the meetings that we have laid out and the events and so forth that are significant, and perhaps send it out to us on an email. If I could get you to actually enter it into my calendar, I'd even be happier, but I don't know that you can do that. But thank you. It would be a big help for that. I will note briefly that this week before last, we had the second annual event honoring the new recipients of the Arthur Campbell Society. It was a very successful evening. I offer my thanks to Ms. Kim Kingsley, Ms. Rosenbaum, Ms. Eisenhower, everybody who had a hand in it. It was an excellent evening, and we honored some people that really deserved recognition for the contributions that they have made to the town, and I think everybody attended that event were very pleased with how well it's shaped up, and council would offer, our thanks for everything that was done to make it a very successful
evening. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay. And it seems like I had something else, but it's probably a blessing.
The Great Pumpkin came to visit, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
we had a great pumpkin. Well, it was a pretty darn good pumpkin contest over at the farmers market. The mayor's prize was again offered for the largest pumpkin, up to 1,000 pounds at $1 a pound. I was only out $466 this go around, but it was a pretty darn good pumpkin we had. There were no actual injuries or permanent injuries loading it on and off the truck. We had, nice publicity from that, and a good crowd that was there to witness the event, and we look forward to doing that again next year.
Mayor of Chincoteague, Virginia.
Mayor of Onancock was there.
Onancock.
And I bet you they could grow a pretty darn good pumpkin over at Fairview if they set their minds to it.
Well, that is one of the projects they have discussed is pumpkin growing and pumpkin selling as a fundraiser. So yes, sir.
All righty. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. We have many events coming up. At this point in time, the Mistletoe Market will start on this weekend, November the 8th. Town offices will be closed on Veterans Day, the 11th. The 12th is the Taste of the Town Trolley Tour. 22nd, 23rd will be the Coombs Center Christmas Craft Show, and the 28th and 29th, the offices will be closed for Thanksgiving. Anything further? Hearing none, I will declare us recessed. Thank you. I will declare us recessed until November the 19th at 6 o'clock, when we will meet at the Holiday Inn, at Exit 7 to express our concerns about Exit 17 to the Virginia Department, or to the governing board of the Virginia Department of Transportation. Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you all there then that night. We are adjourned.